Welcome to What Hope Looks Like. My name is Meg Edwards. I've started this podcast to chat with inspiring people, and I'm curious about what makes them tick. A podcast has been something I've been wanting to do for years, but here we go. I believe we all benefit from sharing good, filling each other's cups up, and I hope today that we can put something in your cup. We are kicking things off with a chat with my good friend Leonie Blackwell. When we explore what hope looks like from a wellness perspective, it requires moving past temporary fixes to look at how communities heal from the inside out. So, Leonie Blackwell is an Australian author, naturopath, teacher, and creator of the Empowered Realism Framework. She is also the founder of Empowered Tapping and has spent more than 40 years helping people understand the deeper patterns that shape emotional well-being, relationships, and personal growth. Leonie is the author of the psychological thriller Lies Within Darkness and the self-development books Making Sense of the Insensible, Accessing Your Inner Secrets, and The Box of Inner Secrets. Through her writing, Leonie offers readers practical insight, emotional clarity, and language for experiences many people struggle to express. With more than 40 years of clinical experience in natural medicine, education, and human behavior, Leonie combines grounded wisdom with compassionate realism. She's also a senior executive contributor to Brains magazine, where she writes regularly on relationships, emotional development, and self-understanding. Welcome, Leonie. Thank you for joining me today.
No worries. Thanks for inviting me. And I'm pretty excited to be your number one, your
Oh,
first
yes. Well,
one.
my training wheels are on and not training wheels for you. I really appreciate the fact that you are an experienced podcast, Leonie, and willing to join me today. First question, what gets you out of
Yeah.
bed in the morning?
Oh, well, I was actually thinking about the reality that I have my life. Sometimes my life looks like it looks really great. And I think that's about healing. Realistically, that's the outcome of the all of the bit. But if I went back to 35 years ago, when I was incredibly sick, the reality was most people didn't actually expect me to get out of bed. They expected me to probably pretty much hide under the covers and never come back out again. And and at the time, not only was my physical health failing me, but everything that mattered to me at the time was also being lost as a consequence of that absolute severe illness. And I did get out of bed. Every single day, I got out of bed and I went to work. And at the time, I was actually a teacher in a socially disadvantaged school. So the kids came from some pretty hard backgrounds. And when people sort of said to me, like, what makes you still turn up? Like, given everything you're going through, why are you still here? And it
Mm.
was literally like, because I've got a job to do, because these kids' lives matter. They're being formed right now. And I've got a responsibility to be there to do my part. And that's what got me out of bed every single day. And while that may have been 35 years ago, it probably is what makes me get out of bed every day.
That's amazing. I think it's that accountability of, you have a role and other people are reliant on you too, and that responsibility gives you a sense of purpose in that.
Mm.
One thing I missed to ask you is that phrase of what hope looks like. When you hear that
Yes.
phrase, which is the what I've dubbed this new podcast, what hope looks like. What conjures up in your mind with those words?
And I think about possibility. And I think the story is funny that you've swapped the questions around, but the reality is I think it now makes more sense for me to give you
Mm.
the answer that I think it's about having options. I think it's about choice. You know, when I consider the looks on people's faces, the smiles, when people that I'm working with, whether that be in a teaching environment, a counseling environment, a naturopathic environment, or in the community, because I've got the whole range of human experience there. The reality is that when they think they have no hope, when they
Mm.
think there's no possibility, when they think there's no choice, people become very depressed and very stuck.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, they they're slumped. Their nervous system is on alert. They're hypervigilant. They're scared. They're in survival mode and fight flight. And so once they actually realize there is hope, there is possibility, there is an answer of some sort. What as a naturopath, the greatest thing I can give someone is an explanation of what their body's doing, and they have hope and they relax. Their shoulders drop. They smile. There's this like sensation that comes from that.
Mm.
And even when I think back to like almost 17 years ago, that we actually launched the Path of Achievement, which was actually celebrating our local community. And it was very much about every role that somebody could play in a sporting kind of, and Druin's got a pretty big reputation for producing some pretty famous sports people. But I didn't want to just celebrate the big people. I wanted to celebrate the coaches, the admin, the people that turned up and poured the cups of coffee for people. Like I wanted anybody that had contributed to the success of sporting achievements to be celebrated. And it was beautiful. The love that was experienced in our community at the time was amazing. But on that day, one of the things that really warmed my heart beyond belief was to see the local Kurnai community sit there with pride, with their shoulders up,
Mm.
out and
Mm.
bright and smiling, and basically saying to me, "Thank you. We feel
Yeah.
like we have a place. We actually are acknowledged in our own community." And they had
Mm.
hope that they
Mm.
could just be a member of our society
Yeah.
instead of this
Label.
isolated,
Yeah.
hidden away, and lots of people said to me in the years afterwards, like, I'm seeing more Aboriginal people in our community than I've seen ever. And I
Mm.
said, yeah, because they're actually feeling comfortable to be out there because they feel acknowledged and seen. So I
Mm.
think possibility, hope, options, choice are just that is what hope is.
Oh, that's awesome. So what is great about you've spoken about some of your challenges in the past and health challenges. What is great about life now for you?
Yeah, so I think we are faced. So, okay, it probably does need to be set in the concept that you've got to understand that I have been a student of human beings my entire life.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, I embrace the curiosity that comes with our life and the patterns. I look at the way in which like what's happening now is a reflection of 100 years ago. I've given lots of talks about that stuff over the last few years. Like the reality is that I look at it and go, yeah, right now the world does look pretty crazy. And a lot of people were borderline on really losing hope. And what I don't think a lot of people are realizing is if we can go political for a moment and irrelevant to what you believe, one nation has provided hope for people because basically what they're doing is getting up and saying that people can have a voice.
Mm.
And so my simple answer to you is this is we're not alone. There is always community. Whether we go back and we look at what happened through lockdowns and the impact on people's mental health by being isolated and alone, but the people who rallied together,
Mm.
who came and met and found ways to communicate through Zoom, in person,
Mm.
whatever it was, that sense of community is what
Mm.
always makes life great.
Yeah, there were silver
Always makes life
linings,
great.
that's for sure.
Absolutely.
And in terms of any challenges, what are there anything that you think we as a community should be doing about any ongoing challenges at the moment?
I mean, we if we go back 100 years ago, what we this is a hope message, realistically, and I
Mm.
say to people all the time, if we actually go back to 100 years ago and look at what was happening in the 1920s and
Mm.
the 1930s, we were between wars, we
Mm.
were in a Great Depression. The world was at that time being technologically advanced for
Mm.
the time. And we have to look at that proportionally to look and see that we are now again in a technologically advanced state. And we feel like we are often on the brink of whether a World War III would actually turn up or not. And there's a lot of conflict and a lot of trouble. So there is no doubt at all that we are facing similar things. So what I say to people is they got through it 100 years ago. We will get through it again now.
Yeah.
So again, hope is important. We've got to have context. We've got to be able to see
Mm.
that. And it comes back to community. We've got to find our people. We have to
Mm.
rally. We have to, this is not a time to sit there and feel, no offense, but feel sorry for yourself. Go, oh, the world's terrible. I can't do anything about it. Yeah, you can. We are the only people who can do anything about it. If
Yeah.
we don't, no one else will. No one's going to save us. No one's here to rescue us. We will rally together and we will find our way through this. And even if our election results are not quite the way we want, that's fine. Just give them a hard time.
Just hold the
Do we
torch.
just keep
Yeah.
hold it, hold it, hold
Mm.
it, hold it, hold. Because if
Mm.
we don't hold our values, if we don't hold our morals, if we do
Mm.
not stick to our integrity, then they win.
Yeah,
And we
absolutely.
can't let that happen. Whether
Yeah.
it's this week, next year, the year
Next
after, we
generation.
keep
Yeah,
fighting.
that's it.
And you
Yeah.
only have to look at how the narrative has changed since One Nation has blown up with popularity. It's changed both the parties to talk differently. Like
Mm,
seriously, Labor would not have done what they've just done. And I
mm,
know that's going to state this slightly, but
mm,
change in what their direction is, change in leader, what the
mm.
Liberals are now saying. Like it's only because the people have rallied and gone, you know what, I've got a voice and I'm going to go behind who's got that voice and I'm going to push it. If we
Yeah,
don't do that, we don't get anywhere. And no offense, but I've been saying this for years. We deserve what we get when we shut our mouths and don't stand up for what's right. We
absolutely.
get what we
I'm
get. We get something better.
I'm loving this, Leonie. Thank you so much for your time today. And I did share with you the questions, given that I'm the new, I've got my training wheels on. I think you've answered part of them, but the next couple of questions are ready. But if you want to add anything to them, which was how can your vision of hope be achieved, and how does community shape the way you approach your work and support the people around you? If you want to add anything in there, then I
Yeah,
think you've kind of encapsulated it already. But
I
um,
have. But
yeah,
I did leave some bits out of that because I know like you
okay,
just get into the mode of it.
yeah, go for
So
it.
so what I would say is this. Micro, macro. So,
Mm,
what we've got to understand is that we are society. So, we look at
mm,
society, we look at governments, we look at institutions and go, oh, that's them out there.
mm.
But the reality is that they represent us and we
Mm,
are part of it. We are teachers, we are nurses. If someone here is going to listen to this, they're a budding candidate to be a politician or they are a politician. Like,
mm,
we are the people
mm,
in all of those systems.
mm,
So we have power. We forget
mm,
that sometimes, but we have power, we have influence. And I mean, this this would be an example, okay?
mm,
So 30 years ago, I joined the Committee for Druin.
mhm,
And at the time, I was told that they weren't going to be using this modern language. Presidents were not gender-based, blah, blah, blah. With chairman was not gender-based, all that kind of stuff. And we weren't going to move into this modern language of chairperson or any of that kind of
mm,
stuff.
mm,
And that, my whatever. Anyway, so I was like, okay, no, that's fine. That's not a problem at all. And so what I did was I was the secretary. So I just slipped it in, slipped it in,
yeah,
slipped it in,
mm,
slipped it in. Within 12 months, everybody was actually using the language that they said they wouldn't use 12 months earlier.
mm,
We don't have to fight everything. Sometimes
mm,
the more we fight, the more resistance we get, but we
mm,
can create subtle, gentle change over time. We can
mm,
bring in, we only have to look at the whole issue around what's gone on with the biological sex thing, with no one being able to name what a woman is.
mm,
The reality is now all of a sudden that's becoming a shift in the way in which people are talking. They're going, well, actually, it doesn't make sense to say biological sex doesn't exist.
mm,
You know, we just persist, we just be factual, we be logical, we be sensible, and we just apply to it. And equality comes, and fairness comes and justice comes when we
mm,
just persist at it and we don't give in. So that point of micro macro is that we are the micro,
mm,
right? But
mm,
we make up the macro. So
mm,
if we want a kinder, more fairer society, then we have to actually be kinder. We
mm,
have to be fairer. One of the things that I find the most fascinating about things that are going on in this world is everybody wants the right to believe what they believe, say what they want to say. So if that's true, we have to also have the capacity to allow someone to say what they believe that we don't agree with
mm.
and
Absolutely.
allow for difference. And for whatever reason, and I'll have to do it, but
Yeah,
100 years ago, if we go back in time, 100 years ago, there was becoming this push because communism and fascism was on the rise.
yeah,
There was this push that there was one way, one opinion, one party. And we're living that again now.
yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
and
Mm,
there's not. I'm really
yeah,
sorry, but I've got my opinions and I've got my ways and I'm allowed to
mm,
have them. And,
mm,
Meg's got her ways and you're allowed to have them. And whoever's listening, you've got your ways, you're allowed to have them.
yeah,
And I've been to Islamic countries. I've been to the Middle East, and the reality is they have one political party, They have one way, they have one idea. There's only one way to do anything. And
Mm,
that is not what a secular Australia does. We
mm,
actually used to be able to have difference of opinions. We used
mm,
to allow for there to be a variety of views
mm,
because we didn't think there was always one way. And often the way, even if I'm having a conversation with someone and someone's got a really good idea and I hadn't thought of it from that perspective, I think the most beautiful thing I get the privilege to do is go, oh, wow. Oh, yeah, okay. Well, I like that. So I'm going to take that piece that makes sense to me and I'm going to actually put that together with mine and go, then I think maybe this could be the way. And the
yeah.
reality is, I started doing that when I was a child because I had a mum and a dad that were chalk and cheese. Dad was laissez-faire. We'll figure it all out as you go along. Freedom, mum, rules, structure, strictness. They were chalk and cheese.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Leonie sat there and went, okay, mum's not completely wrong, and mum's not completely right, and dad's not completely wrong, and dad's not completely right. But
Mm,
each of them have got some really good points. And I started pulling them together to
yeah.
decide what Leonie was going to decide and think.
Oh, that's
And I
fantastic.
think that's the micro macro. Like
Yeah.
I was in charge of me,
Yeah.
even when I was little. And so I decided, like even down to like I grew up in that generation when nobody hugged each other, right? So I
Mm,
hugged everybody because
mm,
I made a decision that I didn't want to be like that.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
I decided that I wanted people to know that I cared and that I was excitable. I was a little bit excitable even as a child, a little bit passionate. And I just oozed that everywhere I went, sprinkling my little stardust everywhere. And I did that even inside my family. Even
Mm,
at my 21st, where the family, oh, I'm not going to give you a hug and a kiss. Well, then don't come to my party. And they're
yeah.
like,
Okay.
well, you won't get a present. I said, well, like, I care about the present. I
Yeah.
want you to be here,
Yeah.
kiss me on the cheek, give me a hug, come to my party. And every one of them did. I said, see, it doesn't hurt. It's all good. So if from that, the micro of Leonie goes out into the world and says to the world, let's be kind, let's be
Mm,
loving, let's
mm,
celebrate, let's be
mm,
vulnerable, let's actually be honest, let's be
yeah.
true to ourselves.
Yeah.
That creates a micro because everybody then rolls on from there. And when I've got
Beautiful.
permission by me to be
Mm,
me,
mm.
I have learned over the years it gives people permission to be themselves.
I love that. I love that. Leonie, every visionary hits a point where the path forward looks completely dark. And can you take us back to a moment when a door is shut on you and how you found the hope to pivot and keep moving?
Yeah, that when you set the questions through, I was like, whew, which one do I pick? And I decided I would actually do the one that's my most recent period of time in the last couple of
Mm,
years. And
mm,
it's probably not so much the door shut in a very traditional kind of way that someone might think. It's actually more around the internal processes and the way in which a lot of things that I thought I was working towards then all of a sudden started to not feel like I could do that. So over the last couple of years, I had an experience and it used up all of the resilience that I had inside of me to be able to, one, survive it, and then two, which is what the last 2 years. So basically, it probably comes down to the last sort of 3 years, 1 year
mm,
of the experience that I had to survive in the last 2 years recovering from that.
mm,
And and the reality is that, I had stood, I had, when I was about 16, I wanted to be the first woman Prime Minister of Australia, right? Because I just wanted to make the whole world better.
Well, we still haven't had a democratically elected female prime minister, so there's still
This
that
is
door
everybody's
open.
these
Yeah.
days. There could be
Mm,
time. And and then of course I went to uni and did politics. And in first year soon discovered that I probably didn't have the makings of being a politician because I'm hopeless at lying. My integrity guides everything, and I literally vomit if I have to compromise my integrity and be in do something that's wrong.
mm,
My moral guidance. So I very quickly went, yeah, I'm not going to be the first woman prime minister in Australia. But I had an opportunity to stand in politics 4 years ago because
mhm,
the whole experience of lockdowns and just the way our state was being managed just was beyond me. And, when
mm,
young kids believed that their parents and grandparents were going to die and they were then planning, to try and figure out how they would have to look after themselves and their siblings. That just pulled at my heart. Like kids should not have to live through that degree of stuff.
Yeah.
So I got involved in politics. So from that point of view, a door had reopened, and that's, I guess, where I saw the link to the door, was a door had reopened in that spark of desire to contribute to our society at that level. I think many of us have this idea, if we can get involved with the decision making of our society, we can really make a difference. Now, how real that is or not. So that door had reopened. So the door closing part of this is, I guess, that when I then experienced a situation of someone's obsession with me that led to a very dangerous scenario. Not sure how far we want to go down that path, but one probably go like read, Lies Within Darkness, and you'll find the whole story. Basically, I had to survive their obsession and their pursuant control and the manipulation, the lies, the way in which they isolated me from people without me even knowing it, lied about me, restricted, made everybody think they couldn't talk to me. Like that whole environment was a really strong, a really powerful experience of the stuff that goes on behind the doors that you don't know that's going on. And the way in which people can control your world without you knowing it. And then when the obsession becomes so intense that it's literally life or death. And that's a situation I ended up finding myself in. And I still have an intervention order in place. So that gives you an idea of just how big and bad it was, because it's now a couple of years. I know it's coming to an end, but it was there. So the reality is the door kind of closed for me because of the terror I was living in, the hypervigilance, the PTSD that I went through, actually the dark night of the soul that happens when you question everything, and how do you survive and recover from somebody that still lives in your own community, and yet the threat is there, and that threat could stay very much alive. So that was a really like, where's your hope? Where's your options? Where's your possibility? Where's your own sense of agency? Everything is put into question when you have to go through something like that. Or when you don't have to go through it, but when you go through something like that. And so what I've discovered over this last, 2 years of the healing process is there was an inner drive inside of me to continue to grow, to take what I experienced and learn from it, to take action. I put it into words as part of my healing, but also to tell a message out there, because I did survive it, and I used very specific strategies that had been well worn, unfortunately, from a life of having to survive many, many different things. And I could have picked a lot of different experiences, but I guess a lot of my life, from being really ill, from leaving teaching to becoming a naturopath, or working in welfare to then pursuing into the naturopathy, like a lot of doors opened and closed over my lifetime, but this one also felt like it was closing a door on me. And that's a different story completely, because when you feel like you've lost a part of yourself that you don't know you can get it back, that's a dark place to go to. So what has been amazing is I didn't give up. I didn't give up on me. I didn't give up on humans. I didn't give up on society. I didn't give up on what we can be. That drive just held me, and that's held me forever from the time I was a child. And I just, one of the things that I learned as a child was I don't even know I don't even know how you would describe it, but it never dawned on me that people were not worth fighting for. And if you go back to the macro micro, then how can I possibly believe that I'm not worth fighting for? So I had to dig very, very deep into me to find the healing which is, thank goodness, I happen to have some qualifications in. Some counseling, I'm a counselor by trade,
You're counseling
um,
yourself in that sense, yeah.
counseling
Yeah,
myself,
yeah, yeah.
and when I was faced with the situation, and this was, and this is that I for the very first time said to myself, I actually don't know how to get through this by myself. I actually need professional help. And because I was not in an intimate relationship with the person, the law has all the services are now funded on domestic violence. And I totally understand that. I'm definitely not going to say that's not right. But what
Mm,
happened is the door got closed by government on helping women generally who were exposed to violence.
mm,
And so no services were available for me because I
mm,
wasn't involved with the person intimately.
mm.
And I'm not going to let that rest, I will say, because
Okay.
I have already started the process of talking to people who make these decisions to say, what about all the women who are in my situation? You know, I even had somebody inside a service say, would you be willing to lie and say you were in a sexual relationship with this man so we can provide you with the service that you need? And I said, no. No, that it's a lie. Two, it compromises everything about who I am.
Yeah.
And no, you know, so I said,
It's
no,
going
I
down
will
a
just
dangerous
fix this.
path when we go down that, isn't it? Yeah.
Because all of a sudden, you know, if I'm in a service, then all of a sudden, like I would never be able to say, well, no, you don't have affairs with married men, because they'll go, well, you did because that's how you ended up in this situation. I go,
Yeah.
no, I only lied to get us.
Exactly.
Ah,
It just
you
and the
can't
fact that
do
you weren't
that.
even advised of that is really disappointing. But is there
Really
a piece of
disappointing.
in your time, is there a piece of unconventional wisdom or advice you've received on the way that you still lean
Yeah.
on now? Or
Yeah, for sure. Um, so, so I will just say we can heal ourselves through the most darkest places because I
mm,
have. And the reality is I'm actually back stronger and bigger and more sparkly than I've ever been in my entire life. So I guess I wanted people to know there's darkness in the world. We are seeing it,
yeah,
but we can survive anything. We can get through it. It's just absolutely pulling into believing in yourself and getting to the other side. In terms of the advice that was given that is unconventional. Yes. So I was in second year of my naturopathy studies and I was talking to my naturopath who literally, you know, saved my life because of the things that
mm,
she helped me guide to get to where I was for how sick I was. It's very grateful to her. Anyway, she said to me, how's your studies going? And I said, I'm a little bit terrified. uh, it's a really big responsibility to be like someone's health. Like people are going
mm.
to come to me who are sick, and I'm supposed to be able to help them get better. And I'm scared of that. I don't know that I can do that. And her response was this, and I didn't expect it. She said, good, don't you ever forget.
Good. Yeah,
And I
fantastic.
stopped, it just stopped me dead. And I
Yeah, the
went,
weight of that. Yeah. Just
yeah. You know, so I've been in my naturopathy business for 32 years at this point in time, and I still approach
mm,
every single day and every
mm,
single client as if today's the most important day of their life.
mm.
And it doesn't matter if I've seen them for 30 years, today matters as much as the one 30 years ago. And I have to show up and be my very best today, like I did every other time for the entire time I've seen them. And
That's
that's what we
a
have to do with life. You have to keep turning up. You have to keep turning up as the best version of yourself that you can do today.
that's an amazing attitude to have. And I remember it actually reminds me of of something I heard from an actor from Fiddler on the Roof who played the role. The one I can't remember the character's name. It's one of the lead role in Fiddler on the Roof. The guy that plays the fiddle on the roof. And they said,
Yeah.
how do you, after all these decades, keep showing up with so much energy? And he said, it's opening night every night for the audience. Every night. It's
Yes.
the first time
Yes.
they've, yeah.
Yeah.
So while he might have done it for decades and over and over again, it's the audience, it's opening night. It's
That's right.
they're seeing it with fresh eyes. And so he needs to bring
Yeah.
that to them. And that's what you're
Yeah.
doing with respecting that the person in front of you is not just another body. It's a human that is they're coming to you and you're seeing that with respecting their health and their time
Yes.
as fresh each time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um aspiration can sometimes feel intimidating to people. How do you cultivate that spark of I can do this when you are stepping into completely unfamiliar territory?
Yeah. And I love that question. I think it's a really good one because I think the the answer probably tends to want to be something very kind of philosophical, but the reality is for me it's very practical. And it's around the fact that if I walk into something new, I understand already that every system, everything that we do in the world has its own language and its
mm,
own rules and its
mm,
own way of being. So
mm,
the first thing I do is I come in as a beginner and I
mm.
come in to learn, I come in open. I'm not coming in going, I know it all, because I've already got all of this experience over
Yeah,
here. Because the reality is, sure, I might have experience over there and I've got lots
yeah,
of it. But if I'm walking into this environment, I don't have experience in that environment.
yeah.
So I walk in to learn, to listen, and to also work out the dynamics of the situation. Who's got the
Mm,
skills? Who's got the knowledge? What's everybody's best bits that they could do? Work out all those things and work to do that in that kind of way. And I can do that even in things that I'm a project manager in. I will work out what's the best skill. Once I've done all the practicality stuff and I know the scene and I've worked it all out, that's when my enthusiasm comes in. That's when I step up. That's when I get
mm,
all excitable. And I have this saying where I talk about like I Leonified it. I do something and it gets Leonified. And we've been doing Kernai Culture Expos for the last 4 years and they got Leonified. Like when I said to the Kernai elders, could I kind of do my thing with it? And they were like, oh, here we go. We're going to get a Leone version of what we're going to do. But it always ends up bigger and grander and more than you ever expect
mm.
because of enthusiasm. So yeah, I think in lots of ways, getting comfortable with vulnerability is an
Yeah,
important part of that. I'm
yeah.
willing to not have a clue. I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to go in there and ask the questions of people and be open
Yeah.
because I don't have this ego that needs to be patted all the time.
And
Like
that is so
I just go in
refreshing.
there.
Yeah, it's so
Yeah,
refreshing. I remember when probably the key quote that I got out of doing the Gippsland Community Leadership Program many years ago was, and it sounds a strange one, but it's go in with a beginner's mindset. And I've gone,
yeah,
that's actually really cool because we come with all this life experience, right? We've got all this stuff, but when we walk into a situation, we walk into a room, whatever it is, go as if we're new. Like put in that mindset of, okay, open slather, open mind. And yes, you bring in that experience to it as well, but come in with that beginner's mindset of being open to all those other ideas as well
yeah,
and everybody else.
yeah.
Uh,
Can
okay,
I
we've
jump
gone,
in and just say
yeah,
one other thing I
yeah,
think is really important? My dad was a truck driver,
yeah,
right? And he said to me when I was a kid, like he said to me, don't forget all the people that do the little jobs.
mm,
And I was like, yeah, okay, that's fine. But when I got into teaching, I realized that meant getting to know the cleaners and finding
mm,
out what they needed done in the classroom at the end of the day so that
mm,
their job was easier
yeah,
and done it and on and on and on. Like I could have a million examples of those things. And even when I did the Gippsland Community Leadership Program back a very long time ago, basically one of the things is I got to know every single person in the whole group. And
mm,
on our last weekend, I said to
mm,
the guy that was running it, could you give me, I said, it was delusional clearly, but could you give me like 20 minutes? I've got this little thing I want to do. And
mm.
probably ended up taking an hour, but I actually ended up doing little prizes for everybody. I gave everybody a little reward. I had everybody with a
Ah,
title for something they did, and I had a little present for everybody for their role. And everybody was literally shocked because they hadn't realized how much I'd learnt about everybody.
I'm not sure
And
when you did it, but I did mine in 2015, and I'm just thinking you might have been before that. Was that right?
2002.
Okay, I reckon they've picked up an idea from you there because in ours,
Mm,
whenever, if I'm feeling down at some time, I'll pull out these couple of envelopes and they were, at the end of ours, we did write something positive about everybody in the room. So it's a kind of, I think it's an extension of what you've obviously done.
yeah,
And sometimes I pull those back out even now, like 11 years later, and I look at it and I go, wow, that person thought this about me. I'm not a bad person. Like, so when you're having one of those down days, you can pull out that thing that somebody's
yeah,
actually taken the time to find some good values in you. And like you took the time to obviously get to know everybody in that cohort
yeah,
and
yeah,
find something special and that was unique to them.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it really does make, yeah,
It
it,
does.
it means something. You're valued as a human being.
Yeah,
After 40
absolutely.
years of working with people, what have they
Yes.
taught you about being human?
That people are incredibly resilient and they
Mm,
have more in them than they realize. And
mm,
the answer is always within, and they can do it. Like, I
mm,
absolutely believe in people.
mm.
I just know they can, and they always do. like that whole idea of like, if you expect nothing of somebody, then they'll give you nothing. But if you expect everything of them, then they will actually step up to it. And within themselves, if we expect the best of
Mm.
ourselves, we can be the best.
That's so
There's more
true.
resilience and more comeback. We can do anything.
Yeah, that's amazing. Leonie,
Mm.
I'm going to wrap up with this question. If there's anything else you want to add, let me know. But if there is a listener tuning into this podcast right now from their car or home, what is the very first thing that they need to do today? If if you could plant a seed of hope, of aspiration in the mind of another person listening to this right now, what would you want them to know?
Yes. Every single person on the planet is here for a reason. No, nobody's the exception. Everybody. And my dad's father, so my pop, my grandfather, he basically believed that women were the most important people in society because they raised children. And the number of times I hear people just go, "Oh yeah, but I'm just a mum." Oh no, you're not just a mum.
Mm,
Raising children is one of the most important things we can do because your children are going to go out there and live in the world and do goodness knows what as a
mm,
result of how you raise them. There is no job on the planet more important than raising
mm,
children.
mm,
But at the same time, there's lots, we all need each other.
mm,
So your part, like I started this, I had a part to play with those kids that I turned up to every day to get out of bed to go teach.
mm,
Every day I've got a job to do to go to work and actually help. I've got posts, I've got all sorts of things that I do, writing books, helping, whatever it is. Everybody's got a job to do with somebody.
yeah,
And so you've got a job to do. You're here for a reason, whatever it is, so do it. Be comfortable, know it, and trust in yourself and believe in how important your part is because it contributes to the whole. Because the whole doesn't happen unless we all do our part. So do your part.
that is awesome. Thank you so much for your time today, Leonie. Just one thing I just thought of that if you've got them nearby, you've written some books. Have you got those handy that you could show us
I
your
do.
books? Just
Yes, I can pull from here into here. Got one missing, I think. Never mind.
and
So this is the novel.
yeah,
This is the novel, Lies Within Darkness.
okay,
So that's my last one. So that's been
yes,
out 8, 9 months, something like
okay,
that.
right,
This is my first one. So that's Making Sense Insensible, which I just did last year. I relaunched that, so I kind of freshened it up and brought it back into sort of a little bit more modern kind of concepts and
okay,
stuff. This is very deep and meaningful.
okay,
This is a Leonified book, I can promise you. It's very deep and meaningful. But it is basically it's self-help in the sense that it's explaining where all of our injustices come from and what our lessons are to learn from injustice. And
okay,
it's funny because when I wrote this, everyone's like, why would you talk about a negative subject like injustice? I said, because life's unfair and we have to learn to embrace it and grow through it. And
okay,
now, and it's really funny because this book became really popular about 5 or 6 years ago. Just when, during the COVID years, everyone all of a sudden went, life is unfair in bigger ways than I thought, and
mm,
I need to know how to grow through
mm,
it. So this is the
yeah,
book about that. So that's really cool. And then this one, here it is. This one here, this one. This was my second last one. So this one, if anyone's feeling traumatized or they want a book that's full of actual tapping scripts, this is
okay,
filled with scripts that actually help rewire your brain and help to take away. So I have a thing called the need fear cycle. So when we have an unmet need, we fear what it says about us.
mm-hmm,
And because of that, then we actually spend our life running around trying to do all sorts of things that create this perpetual feeling like we're not getting anywhere because we don't get that need met. This book basically is filled with tapping scripts to actually fix that. So it's
fantastic. So
fantastic.
that's the practical step type stuff. Oh, and another one,
Absolutely.
four books.
And this
Okay,
one,
okay,
yes, I
okay,
technically have one other written. I'm just in the editing stage,
okay,
and then I have this one, which is similar. It was the first part that introduced the empowered tapping part,
mm-hmm.
and it's also got lots of tapping scripts in it. So that one you have to now only get from me because it's been around, and I've got about 20 copies left. So
Ooh,
I've
okay,
sold just shy of 500 of those. The
okay.
other ones you can actually find, if you want an audio book of this, not an audio book, what do you call them? An
So,
ebook
so,
version of
so
that,
in
then you
terms
can
of the
buy it from
best
my
spot
site.
to touch base with you, have you got a website that people can
Yeah,
go to and
I
then,
do.
and yep, okay.
Yes.
We'll put
So
that. in the comments. But if you want to
Yeah.
just share that now as well, what's that? Is that
So it's
B?
pretty easy. Leonie Blackwell is my
Mhm,
name, and
mhm.
AU is the country I live in. So it's www.leonieblackwell.au, and you'll
Fantastic.
find
No,
everything
no dot
there.
com. No, just
No.com, just
okay.
.au.
Okay,
Yes, I
fantastic. All
decided
right.
to be a bit radical and go, I'm from Australia, and I'm happy about that.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. You've been inspirational. You've helped me with my training wheels today, of my first podcast. And, I look forward to you're a great person, Leonie. I always love chatting with you, and we haven't done that enough. Thank you for lifting my spirits today. And I hope if you're listening that we've been able to lift yours too. Okay, cheers.
Thank you. It's been fantastic.